One more kiss, dear. One more sigh. Only this, dear, is goodbye.
We're doing Raf today. Raf is something special. He's undoubtedly avant-garde. A Belgian industrial and furniture design graduated, self-trained fashion designer. He was also the creative director of Jules Sander, Dior, and Calvin Klein. So he is indeed considered as a very successful designer of our generation. But now it comes to the why. I mean, why is Raf Raf? Why is Rocky, Frank Ocean, Ye, and a bunch of crazy celebrities fuck with his designs? What's so special about him coming from the 90s? Why are we fashion lovers liking him so much? And seriously, why? Why have we ever considered him as one of the pioneers of today's contemporary menswear? Now let's dive and find it out. There are genuinely endless stuff to talk about Raf, but we'll try to trim it down for you into a 10 minutes video. Coming up as a self-trained designer has never been an easy way to gain recognition within the fashion scene, especially during 1990s when he was competing with superstars like Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, Miuccia Prada, Helmut Lang, Martin Margiela. Plus, he wasn't fully into fashion at all. He thought it was cheeky, superficial, in a relatively lower artistic hierarchy, until the all-white Margiela show that completely changed Raf's feeling towards fashion. Let us throw back to some of Raf's archives. Remember, Raf of the fashion hierarchy was that his eponymous designs were meant for bourgeoisie, but the fact of what he had attempted doing was more than clothing. More like an interdisciplinary manifestation of contemporary art, music or movie and art itself. Ever since his first collection of Autumn-Winter 1995, all of his work had been about building connection with the rebellious youth culture. The first 5 collections of Raf were all videotapes. There was simply not enough budget to hold a runway, and he knew he had to draw a certain amount of crowd's attention to prepare for a proper show. Autumn-Winter 1996 caught my eye at first sight. It's already unique to situate a dialogue between 11 rich kids who are retired and pointlessly fooling around in a room, showcasing his collection through the lens of mini-drama. Or take a look at the theme of Spring-Summer 1997 collection about 14 rebellious kids running out of school and hopped on an imaginary UFO, along with a very interesting color blindness test influenced collection logo. Not to mention, the collection itself is mutually unique, including suits that were cut unusually small in the shoulders. It became one of the dominant silhouette of the late 90s. And why are there weird cuts like this? For a straightforward explanation, it was just because we were so small, he said. Simmons introduced the idea that a young man's physical size was not a variance with a sense of isolation, a feeling that would have been ordinary to anyone who had grown up in Antwerp. Well, although there wasn't much to see from Raf before his first official runway, we do know that models were all street-casted teenagers, and the collection itself was rebellious themed. Note that outfits were mostly styled by Oliver Virgil and photographed by Willy van der Peer, who are 2 important friends of Raf, who met under his Walter internship in Antwerp. And yes, also Veronique Branquenho, who was then his ex-girlfriend from 1995 to 2000. Well, it was only until the Autumn-Winter 1997 collection when Raf Simons had finally decided to do an official runway show. Spring-Summer 1998 was a big smash. The Archivist Sex Pistol-inspired collection is a very successful one that resembled what the past collection were representing. Again, rebellious youth, punk emo culture, along with seamlessly Bauhaus-inspired monogram and tank top and scarves. The show was a typical manifestation of rap aesthetics. And I'm sorry for those who always thought Raf only first referenced Joy Division during the spring-summer 2018. In fact, autumn-winter 1999, titled Disorder, Incubation, Isolation, done it 10 years earlier. The collection title was a straight tribute to the dissembled Joy Division and Curtis' shocking suicide by forming the collection under 3 of Joy Division's hit, Disorder, Incubation, and Isolation. The collection also brings a very film noir-inspired theme to me. The models are stood below a chiaroscuro lighting. Well, such a dark themed runway, I would say. Okay, so we can truly see that Raf's success in the fashion scene had already hyped up before the arrival of 21st century. Heading up the early 00s, Raf was astonishingly banging the industry. Notable collections such as Riot emphasize something that's completely opposite on Raf's past collection, getting rid of those slim, skinny shapes, but all getting completely oversized, layers on layers. The Consume collection back in 2003, discussing the consumerism culture, and also go ahead and check out collection like the Spring-Summer 2008 collection, Bauhaus colored block boots, and also enormous color strap bag. It's crystal that Raf is insanely ahead of its time. He did everything before anyone else, and everybody has copied him, said the stylist of Balenciaga. Well, I would want to dig into Raf's collection for Jill, Dior, and CK, but I'm afraid it would take another 20 minutes video, which everyone would just skip and not watch it. So let's make it a part 2. I'll be back for that. You naysayers might say that, Raf wasn't that influential until his collaboration with Stan Smith or the Dior Haute Couture. Well, that doesn't make sense, right? For Arnold and the team to decide Raf or Dior, or neither should Miuccia did, which Jill Sander was part of the Prada group at the time, risking their decision to allow Raf overtaking the women's wear design field that he wasn't familiar with. There's high-key tons of uncertainties and also a wide, various selection of candidates to replace Raf. So back to the questions again. Well, why Raf? When he hates something in the design, he would never hide his feelings. He'll tell you straight away. When he's asked if he loves Off-White, it's a strong no. Very boldly. Not afraid to call out Virgil as original. There's an interview of him and Miuccia who joined together discussing the topic with respect to designer and their relationship connecting to the social media, as he said something like this. That's one of the things I think we should talk about today. I think that designers should be freer to say what we really think. Well, these days we're no longer able to. We're supposed to always self-censor ourselves. People express such extreme opinions online about our collection, yet we dare say one thing that is not politically acceptable. Well, now this really interests me, right? Because you don't really see designers speak this often. They usually tend to hide things because they care too much about their own self-esteem, self-image, care too much about how people feel, and avoid being, offensive and trying to gain sort of recognition from kids online. But however, Raf doesn't care at all. He has never had a single intention to do this. He was not trying to please anyone. Instead, he was just keeping it very real. He was being Raf all the time. How he perceives fashion is also something different from the mass. Fashion to him is about dialogue. It's about building conversation with people around you. And of course, to listen from the youth. Raf would constantly question people around him, and vice versa. To his own extent, there is also definitely a fashion hierarchy that is connected to the idea of elite. Fashion in its own hierarchy can serve everybody, but when it comes to high fashion, we've often heard of designers boasting themselves as high fashion brands, or brands that's connecting streetwear and high fashion, or amalgamation of street and luxe. Well, Raf is completely opposing this idea of trying to be in high fashion to a mass crowd. I'm sorry, but high fashion was always for a small environment. High fashion by nature used to be extreme. Right now we define a lot of things as high fashion, but they're not high fashion. They're clothes. They're clothes on the runway with a nice little twist of styling on coloration and coloration. Everybody thinks it's high fashion. Bullshit. There is very little high fashion. It's actually very true. Whether you agree or not, the definition of high fashion in today's world has been very, very vague. I wish there would be a little chance for me that I could bump into Raf while he's on his favorite Diet Coke. We could discuss on designers we love and hate. We could talk about music, contemporary art, life, and everything. Allow me to say this again. He is one of the most avant-garde designer of its time. It's a pride and individuality that he's expressing to youth. It's a self-confidence that everybody should embrace. It's far more than putting on a Raf Simons garment on the body or any fashion items in order to hide our own insecurity. It's a complete reverse instead. Even if we're not putting on namesake labels and luxury products, our self-identity should be very clear. Clear enough that we are proud of who we are, and no one should ever be an imitator. We are not living under shadow. Instead, we should be shining our brightest star and ultimately lift off.